we wanted to make mention of something also. The news came out this week that Terry Funk is in an assisted living facility down in Texas. And this was met with, obviously a lot of concern. And then I think it was Don Morocco that had mentioned it on a podcast or a radio show that he was on. But then Tommy Dreamer had tweeted, no, I talked to Terry and, he's laughing at everybody and glad they're talking about him and making everybody lighten up a little bit. Obviously it's truth is somewhere in between, yay and boo, in that, it's sad to see Terry need to be in assisted living. He's almost 80. And obviously, Vicky, his wife, who is just the sweetest woman in the world, had passed away not long ago. And I think when you're almost 80, regardless of who you are, you probably don't need to be sitting around the house all by yourself. So I know Terry's had good days and bad days, and we just wish him the best. But I don't think we're ready to write the dirty funker off just yet. The old lady that used to live next door to the castle here, it was my mom's best friend for years and years, went to assisted living, and she was there for like 7 years. She was 92 when she passed away, but she just liked it because she had some company and didn't have to do the cooking. But it's another byproduct of time that the people that I didn't used to consider old have gotten a lot older, myself included. You're not as young as you used to be either, Brian.
No, I'm not. And with this Terry Funk story, I think it hit a lot of people hard because, Terry Funk's one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, but I could actually say I love the guy. I'm really blessed that I got to know him when I was a teenager in the 90s. I got to talk to him on the phone all the time. I got to go to his ranch. And throughout the years, we every now and then would see each other. Remember when you brought him into New York for Ring of Honor? I had my cousin go pick him up and bring him, and it was just great to see him again after all these years. But I'm not unique in having this experience with Terry Funk. Despite being one of the great heels of all time, I think anyone that meets him instantly loves the guy. He's just such a genuine good guy, great to talk to, smart. And I think it just pains a lot of people to hear that he's in any kind of bad way at all, just because he's universally loved. There are very few people in wrestling that are universally loved. I'm trying to think of anyone I've ever heard say anything bad about Terry Funk, and I can't think of a single example off the top of my head.
No. And I'm blank also. And that's the thing. And with Terry, a lot of different generations consider him part of their childhood because he was around for so long and he had such a incredible career in so many different places. But when you think about it, he was a young babyface in West Texas in the 60s. He was, by the time the 70s came around, he was, first known as Dory's younger brother, the policeman, for Dory Funk Jr., the world champion. But he gets to be one of the best workers and the best talkers, and then he becomes the world champion, having, I won't say classic old-style NWA world title matches, but souped up. He could work. He could do those matches, but he did them with the Terry Flair. And I don't mean Ric Flair. I mean his fucking style, his spin on everything, and they were souped up NWA world title matches. And then he was a star in Japan and could pick his spots where he could, all the 80s in the United States, he could come in and out. And we always missed Terry. We always missed Terry in the United States in the 80s because he never stayed around too long because he was back and forth to Japan. He was only picking his spots and making, he didn't have to work really besides Florida, right, which is a great territory to work, but he didn't have to work the territories by the 80s. He could pick and choose and go wherever he wanted. And then the 90s, he wants to help perpetuate the wrestling business, so he works for me and Paul E. at the same time, and does different shit in each place. He's having classic old-style Southern Territory matches with Bob Armstrong, and he's doing barbed wire shit with Sabu in fucking Philadelphia. It just and did he mention the late 80s WCW run so he could do the shit with Flair and Steamboat, and at that time he'd been in the business 25 years, and he's out there with Steamboat and Flair like he's a kid, but he could do everything and he could be a different person at each stage in his life. But did you ever think that the 1970s NWA World Champion Terry Funk could bring the people in Philadelphia to tears by just walking to the ring while Desperado played and be the sympathetic, grandfatherly old Desperado with one more fucking fight left in him?
All right.
He's amazing.
Well, listen, listeners of the 605 Super Podcast have heard this before. I'm going to do it here. Terry Funk's my favorite of all time. It's like Terry Funk, Bret Hart, Ric Flair, Midnight Express, Roddy Piper. Those are like my top tier. Whenever I'm in a bad mood, put them on. I may still be in a bad mood, but I'll be cutting good promos. That's really what happens. But I loved, and I was fortunate because I got to see him in Smoky Mountain, and then I got to see him in ECW a lot, and then I got to see him also in Amarillo, but I hated Desperado. I hated him coming out to Desperado. I just did not like that. That was not the way I wanted Terry Funk presented. I understand why it worked. I understand why Paul did it. I understand why people got emotional. Maybe it's because Don Henley's a prick. I really don't know. But I just did not like him coming out to Desperado.
But here's the thing, that I wouldn't have wanted Japanese Terry Funk or Memphis Terry Funk or WCW against Flair Terry Funk to come out to Desperado, because it wouldn't have matched the energy and the menace and the danger and whatever. But at that point, I thought it fit because, it's if you can get something in ECW television that actually tugs at your heartstrings, embrace it, because it didn't come along very often. It was just mayhem and chaos. But I see where you're going with that.
Think of what an amazing run he had just for a few years there in the 90s. I mean, throughout the 90s, but like 93, 94, 95. He's working all these amazing indie matches. He's working ECW. He has the series with Eddie Gilbert on the indies. In 94 alone, he works for ECW, WCW, and Smoky Mountain. He's a semi-regular in WCW for a while he's working ECW. He was amazing. And you would see him everywhere, and he always delivered. There was never a bad Terry Funk match. It's easier to find a bad Ric Flair match than a bad Terry Funk match. And that's not to put Ric Flair down, because I love Ric Flair.
Well, that's just because Terry Funk never had to work with El Gigante.
Well, Terry Funk did have to work with Junkyard Dog. He figured out how to do it.
Well, that's true.
But then again, he also went home. And I do want to say also one last thing.
Wait a minute, I got to say this. He figured out the way to work with Junkyard Dog at that period in Dog's career was just to never let Dog touch him and take all the bumps for himself.
CM Punk tweeted out the other day, and I'm paraphrasing, I may get this wrong, after this news came out about Terry's health. He said, in retrospect, I probably should have just left a note that my horse was sick. That was really well put.
Anyway, we all wish Terry the best, always, because you know how much, you said he was one of your favorites. You know how much I've enjoyed him all these years, and since the first 5-star match.
You know what I love too? Scott Cornish, I just saw the Wrestling Humorist point this out in the Mothership Facebook group, I believe. To this day, Terry Funk still, even though you could tell he obviously loves the guy, if you bring up Dusty Rhodes, he's like, that asshole. Yeah. He's such an asshole. You could tell they love each other, but anytime since the 90s, whenever I heard Terry Funk get asked about Dusty Rhodes, he always called him an asshole.
That egg-sucking dog. You know, Brian, my father, one time when there was this no-good mangy dog nipping at my heels, he took that dog out behind the barn, and that dog's name was Dusty. And he was an egg-sucking dog, and when my father took that dog out behind the barn, I never saw that dog again. The first 5-star match, the first 5-star promos, by gum, by golly.
By gum?
By gum, by God, by gum, by golly. Buy one of those things. I'll tell you what you ought to buy, the first 5-star cereal. How's that? Let's just get right into it.
Yeah.
Folks, the first 5-star cereal in the history of rating cereal is brought to you by Magic Spoon, the folks at MagicSpoon.com. And we've been talking about them, how great this stuff is and how good it is for you instead of all the sugar and the carbs and the processed crap and shit that makes your kids bounce off the walls and that you shouldn't eat because it makes your stomach lag over your belt. You know, that's terrible when you got the furniture disease, Brian, you know, when your chest is in your drawers. But anyway, if you want to feel good and have a good breakfast and be healthy at the same time, Magic Spoon will get you there. 0 grams of sugar, 13 to 14 grams of protein, and only 4 net grams of carbs in each serving, and 140 calories per serving, although sometimes I do overindulge. It's keto-friendly, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, low-carb, and GMO-free, but not what free? Taste! It tastes great in cocoa, fruity, frosted, peanut butter, blueberry, and cinnamon. You can build your own box or you can buy a variety pack and they'll do it for you. Regardless of which, you go to magicspoon.com/Jim, Jim, to grab the build your own box or the variety pack. Try it today and use the promo code Jim at checkout to save $5 off your order. It's got the 100% happiness guarantee. If you don't like it for any reason because you don't like happiness, they will give you your money back because they like to be happy. And you're not going to ruin their mood at Magic Spoon. Magicspoon.com/Jim. Use the code Jim to save $5 off your next order.
We've been seeing a lot on Twitter lately, people sending us pics of all the Magic Spoon boxes of cereal getting delivered to their house, and sometimes we even see the phrase, Brian was right, frosted is best.
I knew you had to bring that up, that people were praising you because of your ascertainment of the proper best cereal.
Well, I like to see it more like they're praising the frosted cereal. It's just I'm a conduit to get there.
You're certainly a conduit. All right, I can believe if you can do it, nobody can. Anyway,